The message came without warning, appearing on every government terminal across Earth simultaneously. Ambassador Kim stood before the United Nations, her face grave as she delivered the news. The Galactic Council has revoked humanity's probationary status. They deem us too unpredictable and violent for inclusion in galactic society. Protests erupted, but the Council's decision was final. A quarantine field shimmered into existence at the edge of the Sol system, cutting humanity off from the stars. Ambassador Kim's final appeal fell on deaf ears as the alien representatives turned their backs. In the aftermath, Earth's nations set aside old rivalries. Director Park called an emergency meeting of the world's top scientists and military leaders. "If they won't let us join them," he said, looking at the schematics spread before him, "then we'll build our own path to the stars." In a hidden facility beneath the Pacific, construction began on Project Nemesis. Ambassador Soo-Jin Kim watched the last alien ship depart through Earth's atmosphere. The sleek vessel glowed with an otherworldly blue light as it accelerated beyond the clouds. This marked the end of humanity's brief welcome into the galactic community. For 8 years, Earth had enjoyed probationary status, learning and growing under the guidance of more advanced civilizations. Now, that door had closed. Kim returned to her office where the recordings of the final council meeting still played on loop. The Grand Arbiter, a tall being with silvery skin, had spoken the final verdict. The human tendency toward conflict makes them unsuitable for continued interaction. Their inclusion poses too great a risk to galactic harmony. Kim had argued passionately. "We have maintained peace for decades. Our wars are history. Yet your entertainment glorifies violence," another council member had countered. "Your children play at war. Your resources still fund weapons development, despite having no external threats." The truth stung because Kim couldn't fully deny it. Humanity had made progress, but perhaps not enough. 3 days later, military satellites detected the formation of the quarantine field. It appeared as a faint shimmer surrounding the entire solar system, invisible to the naked eye, but impenetrable to any vessel attempting to cross. Earth was caged. President Moon called an emergency session of the United Nations. Representatives from all nations gathered in New York, their faces tense with fear and anger. "We face an unprecedented crisis," President Moon said, "but also an opportunity. For too long, we have relied on alien technology and guidance. Now we must stand on our own." Director Jae-ho Park rose from his seat. Once the head of South Korea's space program, he now led the Global Space Initiative. "Madam President, I request immediate access to all reverse-engineered alien technology. If we pool our resources and knowledge, we can continue our advancement." The debate lasted 18 hours. Old grudges threatened to resurface. Russia accused the United States of hoarding alien artifacts. China questioned European research priorities. But as dawn broke over New York, something remarkable happened: unanimous agreement. The Global Unity Accord was signed by 196 nations. Resources would be shared. Research would be coordinated. Humanity would face the stars as one species rather than competing tribes. Director Park wasted no time. Within days, he assembled a team of 300 of Earth's finest minds at a repurposed naval base in the Pacific. Scientists who had once competed now collaborated, sharing secrets and breakthroughs long hidden by national security concerns. Dr. Min Ta-sung, a physicist who had studied alien propulsion systems, made the first major breakthrough. "Their ships don't just move through space," he explained to a roomful of colleagues. "They shift partially out of our dimension, reducing mass and allowing speeds we thought impossible." Engineer Song, who had reverse-engineered alien metal alloys, added her own discovery. "We can replicate their hull material using Earth elements combined at extreme temperatures and pressures." Week by week, the impossible became possible. Designs evolved from theoretical to practical. Park named their project Nemesis after the Greek goddess of retribution. "Not because we seek revenge," he explained, "but because we will overcome this judgment against us." 6 months after exile, construction began in an underwater facility. The ship would be massive, 500 meters long, with systems unlike anything humans had built before. Workers relocated from around the world, bringing families to new communities built near the facility. The first test of the phase shift drive occurred at the 1-year mark. A small prototype craft successfully disappeared from sensors for 3 seconds before reappearing. The breakthrough made global news, restoring hope to billions. Ambassador Kim, now serving as diplomatic advisor to the project, worried about the military aspects of Nemesis. "We should focus on breaking the quarantine peacefully," she argued during a planning session. "Show them we've changed." Admiral Joe disagreed. "The Council didn't give us a fair hearing before. We need to approach from a position of strength." Director Park mediated a compromise. Nemesis would have defensive capabilities but present itself as an exploration vessel. Its primary mission would be diplomatic, with military options only as a last resort. 3 years into construction, they faced their greatest challenge. The power requirements for the phase shift drive exceeded anything Earth's technology could provide. Engineers worked around the clock, testing and failing, testing again. The solution came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yu, a young researcher who had grown up in a rural village before earning scholarships to study physics, proposed adapting alien waste processing technology to create a new type of reactor. "Their garbage recyclers manipulate atomic bonds," she explained. "If we reverse the process, we can generate enormous energy." Her theory proved correct. The first U reactor came online 6 months later, providing more than enough power for all of Nemesis's systems. As the ship took shape, so did a new human society. The old nations still existed, but people increasingly identified as Earthers first. Children grew up learning multiple languages and studying both Earth and alien history. A generation was being prepared for the stars. Director Park often walked through the massive underwater hangar, watching as Nemesis grew from skeleton to warship. Sometimes Ambassador Kim joined him. "Do you think they'll accept us when we return?" she asked him once. Park considered the question carefully. "I don't know, but they will respect us." On the 5th anniversary of the exile, Director Park addressed the crew selected for Nemesis. 300 men and women chosen from millions of applicants stood at attention as he spoke. "You carry humanity's future among the stars. When Nemesis breaks the quarantine, we return to the galaxy not as supplicants but as equals. Not as students but as teachers. The Council judged us too violent, too unpredictable. Perhaps they were right, but they failed to see our greatest strength, our ability to change, to adapt, to overcome." He looked up at the gleaming hull of humanity's first true starship. "They exiled us. Now we return." 20 years passed. Humanity adapted, innovated, survived. In the underwater hangar, Captain Lee gazed up at the gleaming hull of the Nemesis. No ordinary vessel, it combined human ingenuity with reverse-engineered alien technology salvaged before the exile. "Is she ready?" asked Admiral Ba, stepping up beside him. "As ready as she'll ever be," Captain Lee replied. His hand-picked crew represented Earth's finest: engineers, soldiers, diplomats, all united by a common purpose. That evening, while reviewing final systems checks, Intelligence Officer Han burst into the command center with urgent news. "The Vextheri have breached Council space," she reported, displaying intercepted transmissions. "They're attacking outer colonies, but the Council refuses to acknowledge the threat." Captain Lee studied the data. "Then we'll make them acknowledge it." Captain Jun-Ho Lee walked slowly around the massive ship, his footsteps echoing in the vast underwater hangar. The Nemesis towered above him, its hull gleaming under the harsh work lights. 20 years of human determination had shaped this vessel, transforming alien theories into working systems. Lee had spent the last 5 years overseeing the final construction phase, but still found himself in awe of what humanity had accomplished. The ship stood 500 meters tall, its outer shell made from a metal alloy that could withstand both energy weapons and physical impacts. 6 phase-shift engines lined its rear section, each capable of pushing the ship partially out of normal space. Weapon systems were cleverly disguised as scientific equipment, plasma cannons masked as atmospheric samplers, missile bays hidden behind sensor arrays. Lee stopped at the main entry ramp, running his hand along the smooth surface. Tomorrow, he would lead 250 crew members into space on humanity's most ambitious mission yet. Taking one last look, Admiral Su Min Bai asked, joining him. Lee nodded. 20 years since they locked us out. Hard to believe we're ready to knock on their door again. You were just a lieutenant when it started, Ba said, fresh out of the academy. Lee remembered those days clearly. The shock and anger that swept through Earth when the quarantine went up. The years of unity and purpose that followed. The sense that humanity had been given a challenge it refused to fail. Is she ready? Bai asked, looking up at the massive ship. As ready as she'll ever be, Lee replied. Admiral Bai handed him a small metal object, a captain's insignia, newly designed for Earth's unified fleet. Then she's all yours, Captain. Later that day, Lee met with his command team in the ship's central briefing room. Chief Engineer Du reviewed the engine status. Medical Director Kang confirmed her team's readiness. Security Chief Sun discussed defense protocols. Lee had personally selected each officer, looking beyond credentials to find people who could think creatively under pressure. Earth couldn't match the aliens' experience, but human adaptability might give them an edge. The ship can sustain us for 5 years without resupply, Supply Officer Nam explained. Longer if we find friendly ports. Let's hope we do, Lee said. Our mission is to re-establish contact with the Galactic Council, not to survive alone in space. As the meeting concluded, Intelligence Officer Mai Suk Han remained behind, her expression troubled. Captain, there's something you should see, she said once they were alone. Han activated the room's display system, showing deep space sensor readings collected by Earth's outer monitoring stations. These signals came in yesterday from beyond the quarantine barrier. Our AI analysis suggests they're distress calls from Council worlds. The data showed unusual ship movements and energy signatures at the edge of known space. Lee studied the patterns with growing concern. Can we identify who's attacking? He asked. Han displayed more information. Based on propulsion signatures and attack patterns, we believe it's the Vex theory. Lee remembered briefings about this predatory species from before the exile. The Vex theory had been contained by Council forces for centuries, their expansion halted by unified alien defenses. They were known for their hive-mind approach to warfare and merciless efficiency. The Council must be responding, Lee said. That's the strange part, Han replied. We're not seeing the expected Council fleet movements. It's like they're ignoring the situation. Han brought up intercepted communications. Our linguists have translated some messages. The Council is actively dismissing reports from their outer colonies. They're calling it isolated piracy rather than a coordinated invasion. Lee considered the implications. Either the Council had become dangerously complacent, or something more troubling was happening within galactic politics. How recent is this data? He asked. The latest transmissions are from 3 days ago. The attacks appear to be accelerating. Lee made his decision. Update our mission parameters. We'll still attempt diplomatic contact with the Council, but our approach vector will take us through the conflict zone. Sir, Han looked surprised. If the Vex theory are launching a major offensive, the whole galaxy could be at risk, including Earth. We need to understand what's happening. That evening, Lee called Admiral Ba with the new information. The Admiral authorized the mission change, but added a warning. Your primary objective remains opening communications with the Council. We can't afford to be seen as aggressors. Understood, Lee replied. But if Council worlds are under attack, we can't simply watch. The next morning, final preparations moved quickly. Crew members boarded with minimal personal possessions, just uniforms. essential items, and small mementos from Earth. Many carried photographs of family members who might be much older or gone entirely, if the mission stretched for years. Engineer Du conducted the final system checks as Lee toured the ship. The bridge crew took their stations. Medical teams prepared their equipment. The kitchen staff secured supplies for the long journey. At midday, Lee stood on the bridge as water drained from the massive hangar. Nemesis hung suspended in its cradle, ready for its first true flight. All systems nominal, reported Officer Yoon from the operations console. Phase shift engines ready for startup sequence. Crew status? Lee asked. All personnel secured and accounted for. Security Chief Sun confirmed. Lee took his captain's chair, feeling the weight of the moment. Nearly 8 billion humans waited to see if their 20-year gamble would pay off. Begin launch sequence, he ordered. The ship hummed to life around them. On the main screen, the hangar doors far above began to slide open, revealing blue ocean water. And beyond that, the sky. Communications, send final message to command, Lee said. Communications Officer Cho nodded. Channel open, sir. Lee spoke clearly, knowing his words would be broadcast worldwide. Nemesis to Earth Command. We are commencing mission. The path home begins today. Admiral Baz's voice came through crisp and clear. Godspeed, Nemesis. Return with news of our neighbors, and with the quarantine broken. As the hangar finished draining, support cradles retracted. Nemesis hung free for the first time, its massive bulk defying gravity through repulsor technology. Take us up, Lee ordered. The ship rose slowly, water cascading from its hull as it emerged into open air for the first time. Around the world, people watched on screens as humanity's greatest creation took flight. Officer Han approached the captain's chair as they cleared Earth's atmosphere. New intelligence, sir, she said quietly. We've detected another Vex Theory attack, closer to Council core worlds. Lee studied the data, his expression hardening. Then we'd better hurry. Set course for the quarantine barrier. The stars spread out before them as Nemesis accelerated away from Earth. 20 years of exile were about to end. The Nemesis approached the quarantine barrier, engines humming with power. Activating phase shift in 3, 2, 1, announced Chief Engineer Choi. The ship shuddered as reality twisted around it. For a moment, existence itself seemed to bend. Then they were through, the barrier intact behind them. They emerged near a Council scientific outpost. Emergency signals filled their communications array. Vex Theory raiders, Officer Han confirmed. The outpost is under attack. Captain Lee's decision was immediate. Battle stations. The Nemesis swept in, weapon systems deploying with precision that shocked the Council members watching from the outpost. The Vex Theory ships, unprepared for resistance, scattered before the human warship's onslaught. When the survivors were brought aboard, the Council scientists stared in disbelief. You're human, one whispered. Last time I checked, Captain Lee replied with a grim smile. The great ship slowed as it neared the edge of the solar system. Through the main viewport, Captain Lee could see nothing unusual, but the sensors told a different story. The quarantine barrier stood before them, invisible to the eye, but impenetrable to normal travel. For 20 years, this energy field had kept humanity caged in their home system. Barrier strength at maximum, reported Officer Yoon from the sensor station. No fluctuations detected. Lee nodded. The Council had built their cage well. No conventional ship could pass through it. But Nemesis was far from conventional. Engineering. Status report, Lee called. Chief Engineer Jin Woo Choi's voice came through the comm system. Phase shift systems at full power, Captain. All safety protocols active. Lee looked around the bridge. His crew worked efficiently at their stations, but he could see the tension in their postures. No one had ever attempted to breach the barrier before. Theory suggested their phase shift technology would allow them to slip partially out of normal space, bypassing the barrier entirely. But theory and practice were different things. All hands, secure for phase shift, Lee ordered. Medical teams on standby. Throughout the massive ship, crew members strapped into safety harnesses. In engineering, Choi made final adjustments to the 6 enormous engines that lined the rear section of the vessel. Phase shift calculations complete, announced Navigator Kim. Course locked in. Lee took a deep breath. Begin the sequence, Mr. Choi. The chief engineer's voice was steady. Initiating phase shift in 3, 2, 1. A deep vibration ran through the ship. On the bridge, displays flickered as reality itself seemed to bend. The stars outside the viewport stretched into lines of light. Officer Yoon gasped as her hands became transparent for a split second. Lee felt a curious sensation, as if his body was both solid and not solid at the same time. The ship groaned around them, metal stress points crying out as fundamental forces changed their nature. For one terrifying moment, he feared the Nemesis might tear itself apart. Then, as suddenly as it began, the effect subsided. The stars snapped back to their normal appearance. The vibration faded. Status, Lee demanded. We've cleared the barrier, Captain. Navigator Kim reported, her voice filled with wonder. We're through. A cheer went up from the bridge crew. 20 years of exile ended in a moment. Damage report, Lee called, maintaining his focus. Minor stress fractures in sections 5 and 8, reported Choi. Nothing critical. The phase shift worked exactly as designed. Lee allowed himself a small smile. Well done, everyone. Return to normal operations and... Captain, interrupted Communications Officer Cho. I'm picking up emergency signals. Very close. The celebration quieted immediately. Source, Lee asked. A Council scientific outpost. Cho replied, adjusting his equipment. It's under attack. Intelligence Officer Han moved quickly to her station, analyzing the incoming data. Confirming Vextheri energy signatures, Captain. 3 raider vessels surrounding a Council station. Lee stood from his chair, moving to the tactical display. The situation was clear at a glance. A small Council research outpost, likely with minimal defenses, was being systematically taken apart by Vextheri ships. The station's distress calls showed they had already lost their outer ring, with attackers cutting their way toward the central hub where survivors were gathered. How did the Council respond? Lee asked. No response vessels detected, Han reported after checking her scanner. They appear to be on their own. Lee considered their options. The Nemesis mission was to make contact with the Galactic Council, not to engage in combat immediately after crossing the barrier. Involvement could be seen as aggressive, confirming the Council's worst fears about humanity. Yet the decision formed in his mind with crystal clarity. Battle stations, he ordered. All hands to combat positions. The bridge transformed as weapon systems came online. Defensive shields hummed to life around the massive ship. Tactical, give me a firing solution that targets the Vextheri ships only, Lee commanded. Minimum damage to the station. Solution ready, Captain, replied Weapons Officer Sun. Primary cannons locked. Communications, broadcast on all frequencies, Lee said. Let the station know help is coming. The Nemesis accelerated toward the battle, its massive engines pushing it forward with surprising speed for such a large vessel. The Vextheri raiders, focused on their prey, didn't notice the approaching ship until it was almost upon them. They're turning to engage, Han reported. Charging weapons. Fire, Lee ordered calmly. The hidden weapon ports along Nemesis's hull slid open. Energy beams lashed out with precise aim, striking the nearest Vextheri ship directly in its engine section. The raider spun out of control, secondary explosions rippling along its side. The other 2 Vextheri vessels broke away from the station, turning to face this unexpected threat. They fired together, energy weapons striking Nemesis's shields. Shields holding at 92%, reported Officer Yoon. No damage to critical systems. Lee nodded. Continue the attack. Focus on disabling their weapons first. The Nemesis fired again, this time launching a spread of missiles. The Vex Theory attempted evasive maneuvers, but human targeting systems had been designed with exactly this scenario in mind. The missiles tracked their targets with relentless precision, detonating against their weapon arrays. One Vex Theory ship, badly damaged, turned to flee. The other continued firing, switching to a different weapon system. They're deploying boarding craft, Han warned. Heading for the station. Intercept them, Lee ordered. Use point defenses. Smaller defense turrets activated along Nemesis's hull, targeting the tiny boarding vessels. One by one, they exploded into debris. The remaining Vex Theory raider, seeing its attack fail, finally turned to retreat. It accelerated away from the battle, its damaged systems trailing energy into space. "Should we pursue?" asked Sun. Lee shook his head. "The station is our priority now. Bring us alongside and prepare medical teams for boarding. Communications, see if you can reach anyone inside." The Nemesis moved carefully alongside the damaged Council station. Up close, the destruction was worse than it had appeared on sensors. Entire sections had been torn open to space, their contents scattered in a debris field. The central hub remained intact, though its life support systems appeared to be failing. "I have contact, Captain," Cho announced. "Audio only." "Put it through," Lee said. A tired alien voice came through the speakers, speaking in the common council language. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself." Lee answered in the same language. "This is Captain Jun-Ho Lee of the Earth ship Nemesis. We're here to help." There was a long pause before the voice returned, confusion evident. "Earth? That's not possible. Earth is under quarantine." "Not anymore," Lee replied. "We're sending medical teams to assist your survivors. Please prepare for boarding." 3 hours later, the rescue operation was complete. 28 Council scientists and station personnel had survived the attack, representing 6 different alien species. They had been brought aboard Nemesis and were receiving treatment in the medical bay. Captain Lee stood in the observation room, watching through a large window as Dr. Kang and her team worked on the injured aliens. Most seemed to be recovering well, though several required specialized care for unique physiologies. "They're ready to speak with you," Dr. Kang said, joining him at the window. "The lead scientist is asking specifically for the captain." Lee nodded and followed her into the medical bay. The alien scientists fell silent as he entered. Many stared openly at him, studying his human features with scientific curiosity and evident surprise. The lead scientist, a tall blue-skinned being with 4 arms, approached slowly. "You're human," he whispered. "Last time I checked," Captain Lee replied with a grim smile. Science Director Yoon examined the Vex Theory technology captured during the battle. "These communication devices," she said, "they're designed to mimic Council encryption. And look at this." She displayed a series of messages. They've had agents in the Council for decades. The truth dawned on them all. Humanity's exile had been orchestrated by the Vex Theory, who feared human unpredictability might disrupt their long-planned infiltration. "We need to warn the Council," Captain Lee insisted. The Council capital lay at the heart of protected space, its defense grid specifically calibrated against human technology, a parting gift from their exile. When their warnings were dismissed as human deception, Communications Officer Kang intercepted Vex Theory transmissions confirming an imminent coup. "They'll never believe us without proof," said Ambassador Kim. "We need to reach the capital." Captain Lee nodded. "Then that's exactly what we'll do." The rescued aliens recovered quickly under Dr. Kang's care. Captain Lee ordered Nemesis to maintain position near the damaged station while his crew worked to understand what was happening. The lead Council scientist, who introduced himself as Researcher Zol, explained that attacks like this had increased over the past year, but the Council leadership had continually downplayed the threat. "They call it border incidents or isolated attacks," Zol said, his 4 hands moving in frustration. "Many stations like ours have been destroyed." In the ship's laboratory, Science Director Jai Yan-yoon carefully examined equipment recovered from the Vex-Theory raiders. Her team had managed to salvage communication devices and data storage units from the wreckage. "Captain, you need to see this," she called as Lee entered the lab. Yoon pointed to a complex device connected to the ship's computers. "This is a Vex-Theory communication system. We expected their technology to be different from Council standards, but look." She activated a display showing signal patterns. They're designed to perfectly mimic Council encryption patterns. Lee frowned. That would let them intercept Council communications. "Not just intercept," Yoon said, her expression grave. "They could send fake messages that would appear to come from legitimate Council sources." She tapped another screen, bringing up a series of decoded messages. "We found these in their data storage. They date back nearly 30 years. Lee read the screen, his eyes widening. "Infiltration reports. They've had agents in the Council for decades." Yoon nodded. "According to these records, they began placing operatives in minor positions within the Council administration shortly after first contact. Over time, they moved into positions of greater influence." She scrolled through more data. "And look at this section. From 22 years ago, a plan to isolate potential threats to their infiltration." The file contained a list of species considered dangerous to Vex-Theory plans. Humans were at the top, marked as unpredictable, adaptable, must be contained. Lee stared at the screen as understanding dawned. Our exile wasn't the Council's decision. It was Vex-Theory manipulation. They feared that humans would notice patterns others missed, Yoon confirmed. "Our tendency to question authority and look for hidden motives made us too dangerous to their infiltration plans." The revelation spread quickly through the command team. Intelligence Officer Han compared the data with their existing files on Council politics, finding suspicious patterns they had never understood before. The crew gathered in the main briefing room, joined by researcher Zol and 2 other recovered scientists. "The Vex-Theory have been playing a long game," Han explained to the assembled officers. "First isolating potentially troublesome species, then gradually taking control of key Council functions." "But why?" asked Chief Engineer Choi. "What's their ultimate goal?" Zol spoke up, his voice solemn. "The Vex-Theory believe themselves to be the only species worthy of galactic dominance. All others are lesser beings to be conquered or eliminated. Their current attacks on outer colonies are just the beginning." Han continued. "Based on these communication logs, they're preparing for a full-scale coup at the Council capital itself." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "We need to warn the Council," Captain Lee insisted, standing up from his chair. "This goes beyond old grudges. The entire galactic community is at risk." Ambassador Zhou, who had joined the mission as the diplomatic lead, shook her head. "The Council would never believe us. Humans have been isolated for 20 years. We suddenly appear with claims of conspiracy. They'll see it as a desperate ploy to regain acceptance. Then we'll bring researcher Zol and the others to vouch for us," Lee suggested. Zol's skin darkened, the equivalent of a grim expression. "I fear my word would not be enough. I am a junior researcher from an outer station. The Council leaders listen to their close advisors, many of whom may be compromised." Communications Officer Kang entered the room hurriedly, a datapad in her hand. "Captain, we've intercepted new Vex-Theory transmissions. They're accelerating their timeline. The coup is planned for 3 days from now." Lee studied the star chart displayed on the main screen. The Council capital orbited a blue giant star at the heart of protected space. Between Nemesis and that destination lay multiple defense systems, all calibrated to detect and stop human technology. A parting gift from their exile. "How fast can we reach the capital?" Lee asked Navigator Kim. "At maximum speed, 2.5 days," she replied. "But that assumes we can pass through the defense grid undetected." Lee turned to Engineer Choi. "Can we extend the phase shift technology to bypass their security systems?" Choi's brow furrowed in thought. "Possibly. The principle is similar, but their grid uses different detection methods than the quarantine barrier. I'll need to make modifications. You have 12 hours, Lee told him. After that, we begin our approach, ready or not. As the meeting dispersed, Ambassador Joe approached Lee privately. Captain, we should consider diplomatic channels. Perhaps we could transmit our evidence ahead of our arrival. Lee shook his head. We tried that already. Earlier, they had sent a priority message to the Council, including evidence of the Vextheri infiltration. The response had been swift and dismissive. Human deception tactic. Attempts to breach Council space will be met with force. Their communications may be compromised, Lee explained. Any warning we send could be intercepted or discredited by Vextheri agents. Over the next 12 hours, the Nemesis prepared for its dangerous journey. Engineer Choi and his team worked continuously to modify the phase shift system. Medical staff treated the remaining injuries among the rescued scientists. Security teams drilled for possible combat situations. In her lab, Science Director Jung continued analyzing the Vextheri data, searching for anything that might help their cause. Late in the ship's night cycle, she discovered something significant. The Vextheri use biological markers to identify their agents, she explained to Captain Lee, showing him microscopic images. A synthetic protein sequence injected into their operatives. It's undetectable by standard Council medical scans, but with the right calibration. We could identify which Council officials are compromised. Lee finished her thought. Exactly. I've modified our scanners accordingly. The next morning, as the crew prepared for departure, Communications Officer Kang intercepted new Vextheri transmissions. Her face was pale as she played them for Captain Lee and the command team. These were sent in the last hour, she explained. They confirm the coup is imminent. They've positioned forces throughout Council space, including sleeper cells at the capital itself. Lee studied the tactical display showing the location of known Vextheri forces. The situation was worse than they had feared. They'll never believe us without proof, said Ambassador Joe. We need to reach the capital and show them evidence they can't ignore. Captain Lee nodded, his decision made. Then that's exactly what we'll do. He activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. Set course for the Council capital. Maximum speed. Across the massive vessel, crew members moved to their stations. The rescued aliens watched in a mixture of hope and disbelief as humans. The species the galaxy had rejected now raced to save it. Nemesis accelerated away from the damaged station, its engines pushing it to speeds that would have been impossible for Earth vessels just 20 years earlier. Ahead lay the heart of Council space, and a confrontation that would determine the fate of galactic civilization. The Nemesis dropped out of jump space directly into chaos. Vextheri vessels surrounded the Council capital, their true colors finally revealed. All hands, battle stations, ordered Captain Lee. We're going in. What followed would be remembered in galactic history as the Battle of the Council. The Nemesis carved a path through the Vextheri blockade, human tactics confounding the methodical aliens at every turn. Security Chief Song led the ground team through the Council chambers, fighting alongside the very peacekeepers who had once enforced humanity's exile. When the last Vextheri agent was captured, the Council Arbiter approached Captain Lee on the command deck. We misjudged humanity, the Arbiter admitted. What we saw as unpredictable violence was adaptability, the very quality needed to see through the Vextheri deception. The quarantine around Earth was lifted that day. Humanity rejoined the galactic community not as supplicants, but as equals, their unique perspective recognized at last as essential to galactic stability. Captain Lee watched from the observation deck as communication was restored with Earth. Behind him, human and alien crew members worked side by side, a glimpse of a future once thought impossible. Welcome back to the stars, he whispered as the Nemesis turned toward home. The Nemesis emerged from its final jump with alarms blaring across every deck. The scene that greeted them was worse than they had feared. Dozens of Vextheri warships surrounded the Council capital, a massive ring-shaped station that orbited a blue giant star. Several sections of the station were already damaged, with fires visible through broken hull sections. Multiple Vextheri vessels detected, reported Officer Yoon, her voice steady despite the chaos on her sensor screens. They breached the outer defenses. Council ships are engaged but heavily outnumbered. Captain Lee took in the tactical display with a single glance. The Vextheri had launched their coup earlier than expected. They had positioned their forces in a classic encirclement pattern, cutting off escape routes while specialized ships attached to the station itself. The Council Defense Fleet is in disarray, Intelligence Officer Han added. Their command channels are filled with conflicting orders. Lee nodded grimly. The Vextheri agents within the Council are sabotaging their response. The bridge crew looked to their captain, awaiting his command. 20 years of preparation, of innovation born from necessity, had led to this moment. Humanity's first true warship now faced the very threat it had been built to confront. All hands, battle stations, ordered Captain Lee, his voice calm but firm. We're going in. Throughout the massive vessel, crew members rushed to combat positions. In engineering, Chief Choi diverted power to weapons and shields. In medical, Dr. Kang prepared her teams for casualties. In the hangar bay, Security Chief Song and her tactical squad checked their equipment one final time. Our priority is reaching the Council chambers, Lee told his officers. Ambassador Joe, once we create an opening, you'll lead the diplomatic team with evidence of the Vextheri infiltration. Science Director Yoon, your scanner modifications will be crucial in identifying disguised agents. What about the Vextheri fleet? Asked Weapons Officer Sun. Lee studied the enemy positions. They don't know we're here yet. Their focus is on the Council forces. We'll use that to our advantage. He turned to Navigator Kim. Plot a course that keeps us in the shadow of the larger debris until the last possible moment. The Nemesis moved forward, its massive bulk somehow gliding silently through space. The human ship used the scattered wreckage of destroyed Council vessels as cover, approaching the heart of the battle undetected. Range to nearest Vextheri vessel, 5,000 meters, reported Officer Yoon. Target their engines and weapons systems, Lee ordered. Fire when ready. The Nemesis struck without warning. Energy beams lashed out with perfect precision, striking 3 Vextheri ships simultaneously. The alien vessels, caught completely by surprise, spun out of formation as secondary explosions rippled across their hulls. Direct hits on all targets, Sun confirmed. They're losing power. The element of surprise wouldn't last long. The remaining Vextheri ships turned toward this new threat, their formation shifting to face the human vessel. Incoming fire, warned Yoon. Multiple missiles and energy weapons. Evasive pattern Delta, Lee commanded. Return fire, full spread. What followed would later be remembered in galactic history as the Battle of the Council. The Nemesis moved with unexpected agility for its size, human tactics confounding the methodical Vextheri at every turn. Where the aliens expected direct approaches, the humans attacked from unexpected angles. When the Vextheri adjusted their shields to block energy weapons, the Nemesis switched to kinetic projectiles. In the midst of the space battle, a smaller drama unfolded. Security Chief Min Jae-song led a team of 20 human soldiers aboard a transport shuttle, launching from Nemesis during a brief lull in the fighting. Their target, the Council chamber at the heart of the station. Approaching Docking Bay 7, reported the shuttle pilot. Heavy fighting reported inside the station. Song checked her weapon one final time. Remember the plan. Our priority is reaching the Council members. Science team identifies Vextheri agents. We neutralize them. Ambassador Joe delivers the evidence. The shuttle docked with a heavy clang. The moment the airlock opened, Song led her team into chaos. The station's corridors were filled with smoke and the sounds of fighting. Council security forces battled infiltrators who had revealed their true allegiance. This way, called Ambassador Joe, consulting a station map. The Council chambers are 3 levels up. The human team fought their way through the station, their Earth-designed weapons proving surprisingly effective against Vextheri armor. At several junctions, they encountered Council peacekeepers, the very forces that had once enforced humanity's exile. After initial suspicion, the aliens joined forces with the humans, forming an unlikely alliance. "We'd received warning of the coup," explained a Council security officer as they moved together. But it came too late. They had agents everywhere. Inside the Council chambers, the last loyal defenders fought desperately against overwhelming numbers. The Vextheri had nearly reached the inner sanctum where the Council members had barricaded themselves. Song's team hit the attackers from behind, their unexpected arrival turning the tide. Science Director Yoon moved through the battlefield with her scanner, identifying disguised Vextheri agents among those claiming to be loyal Council staff. In space, the battle reached its climax. The Nemesis had sustained damage to multiple systems, but had destroyed or disabled 8 Vextheri vessels. The remaining enemy ships began to retreat, their coordinated attack falling apart as their hidden leaders were exposed. Captain Lee stood on his damaged bridge, directing emergency repairs even as he maintained tactical command. A message from Song confirmed they had secured the Council chambers and exposed the primary Vextheri agents. Hours later, when the last infiltrator had been captured and the immediate threat contained, Lee was summoned to the Council chambers. He walked through corridors still bearing the scars of battle, past Council species who watched the human captain with a mixture of wonder and reassessment. The Council Arbiter, a tall being with crystalline features, approached Lee as he entered the Grand Hall. The Arbiter had been among those who had voted for humanity's exile 20 years earlier. "Captain Lee," the Arbiter said, formal but respectful. "The Council owes you and your crew a debt we cannot easily repay." Lee nodded but said nothing, waiting. "We misjudged humanity," the Arbiter continued, the admission clearly difficult. "What we saw as unpredictable violence was adaptability, the very quality needed to see through the Vextheri deception." The Arbiter gestured to the gathered Council members. "Today, by unanimous vote, we have ordered the immediate removal of the quarantine field around your solar system. Earth will be welcomed back into the galactic community, not as a probationary member, but as a full partner." The news spread quickly through the human crew. After 20 years of isolation, the stars were open to them once more. Engineers worked alongside Council technicians to repair both the Nemesis and the damaged station. Medical teams exchanged knowledge and techniques. The barriers, both physical and cultural, began to fall. 3 days later, as repairs neared completion, Captain Lee stood alone on the observation deck. Through the massive viewport, he watched as the first messages were transmitted to Earth, officially ending their long isolation. Behind him, the door slid open as Ambassador Joe entered. "Captain, the Council has requested our input on the new security protocols. They're particularly interested in human approaches to pattern recognition." Lee nodded, a smile touching his lips. "Tell them we'll be happy to assist." Joe paused, studying the captain's expression. 20 years of exile, and now we're valued advisors. It's quite a change. "It's just the beginning," Lee replied. "Our differences aren't weaknesses to be feared. They're strengths to be combined." As Ambassador Joe left to attend the meeting, Lee turned back to the viewport. Behind him, through the open door, he could see human crew members working alongside aliens of a dozen species, sharing ideas, solving problems together. The Nemesis would soon begin its journey home, carrying news that would transform Earth's future. Humanity would rejoin the galactic community, not as supplicants, but as equals, their unique perspective recognized at last as essential to galactic stability. "Welcome back to the stars," he whispered, as the great ship prepared for its return journey to a home forever changed. The end.